Welcome to Conversations with Healers, a podcast and video interview series that features intimate, soulful, and cozy conversations with self-healers and healers. Healer to healer, we dive into all aspects of self-healing and healing, and being and becoming a healer. I am Damla. I am a healer and the host of this podcast, and I can't wait for you to listen to this conversation. If you are new to this podcast, please take a moment to subscribe so that you can be aware of new episodes. I also invite you to visit adropofom.com, adropofom.com, where I share a lot of free resources for self-healing and healing, and you can take a free quiz to find out what your energetic wounds are and how they may show up in your life. Discovering what your wounds are is the first step in healing them. I hope you enjoy this episode. There is one more thing I would like to share with you before you listen to this episode. I created a wonderful container to help you heal your energetic wounds and activate the infinite light and potential of your inner children. It is a crystal energy healing membership called Chakra Bliss Vault. Every month you will receive 3 new crystal healing sessions. Plus, you'll immediately have access to my entire energy healing recording library when you sign up. The membership is really affordable and will continue to be so. You can find out more about it at adropofom.com, adropofom.com. I invite you to make healing your energetic wounds and connecting with your inner children a priority and invest in your well-being by becoming a Chakra Bliss Vault member. Hello everyone, this is Damla with A Drop of On, and I have here with me Brian Berneman. Brian, hi. And welcome to
Hi, Damla. Thank you so much for inviting me, and a pleasure to be here with you.
Yes, so happy to have you. So Brian is a conscious living expert, holistic coach and practitioner. He is a somatic healer, family constellation facilitator, speaker, co-founder of Conscious Action and You Being You. And he blends ancient wisdom and modern science to help you live a more healthy, balanced, and meaningful life. All of those are, some of those are really big interests of mine, but all of those speak to me. So thank you again for being here, Brian. What I want to ask you is your story of what brought you here to being who you are and doing what you do in this particular way.
Yeah, thank you for that. I have been super fortunate in this lifetime to be born in the family that I was born into. That my parents, when I was my first few years of my life, my parents started to be interested in their own path and their own healing journey and spiritual, endeavors. And through that, little by little, by the time that I was in the first few years of my teenage stage, that they started to introduce some of those things into our, family dinners and different things like that. And little by little, they invited me and my siblings if we wanted to go to those classes, to those gatherings with them. And for some reason, I said yes. My siblings didn't, but for some reason, I was really interested. And by the time that I was, 15, 16, 17, those years, I explored so much. I was just, I went to this Tibetan yoga class, which is a style of yoga that not that many people know. And I felt for the first time in my life how my body felt. Like I thought that I knew how to feel, but I didn't. I realized that I was super disconnected. So I started to feel that, and then I started to explore some Reiki healings and sound healing and different modalities. And I was like, each time, everything that I was exploring, I was like, oh wow, I'm resonating so much with this, I'm resonating so much with that. And suddenly I started to also notice more and more the transformations in my life, not only when I was doing that, but also in my everyday life. So I just kept on exploring all of this for myself until, well, moving forward many years, and suddenly I am sharing this.
Yes. Oh, that's beautiful. What I'm hearing you say is, I feel most of us healers, including me, we hit a wall for us to change direction and
Mm,
move towards something. What I'm hearing is or your life was designed in this lifetime in a way that you would be pulled towards things instead of like being pushed into the ditch and like
yes.
now figure it out. Do you still feel that way? Do you still feel that's how it unfolds for you?
Yes, it was pretty interesting what you said, because a lot of times I felt like my life has been amazing. And a lot of times I felt that, and I felt like, most people that get into this path, they get into it because of what you said. They hit like a challenge or rock bottom, or something that they need to face, and suddenly it's like, okay, redirecting. Um, I felt like when I was in those years, when I started to explore all of this, I felt like there was something more to life that I didn't know what it was, and I found it in all of this. Yet I remember some years ago, perhaps like 10 years ago or so, that I was talking to my mom, and I was telling her, like, I don't feel like people can, really resonate with me because I didn't go through challenges. And she was like, well, you actually went through a lot of challenges. You just dealt with them in a way that most people don't. Therefore, you didn't really experience them as such a difficulty, but the challenge was there. You just had the tools to navigate through them. And I actually like she started naming, like a few things that happened with um, death in the family, or with um, different stages that I was, living in one place, and suddenly from one day to the next, my visa didn't get renewed, so I need to leave, and everything, like living, work, like place, everything that was my life, and starting over again. And realizing like, I was able to deal with that, but majority of people, that would be one of those in your face challenges that asks you to look differently.
Yeah, I think that's a good reminder that there is no one path, and it seems it needed to happen a certain way for you as it did for me and all of us. So you you have named one of your initiatives is called Conscious Action, and I know you do a lot of workshops and events related to that, and healing in there. What is conscious living for you? What do you mean by that?
Thank you. It's always interesting, because I think for a lot of people it means something slightly different. Um, for me, conscious living is all about being present, being connected, and being intentional with the way that we are living, from all aspects of our life. You know, with understanding we are living at this moment in this space, in this um, earth, in this dimension, with the systems that are in place. So we need to navigate through them in the best way that we can. So for me, the like conscious living is all about the inner experience and the outer experience, and how they are actually connected, and how we can behave in a way that takes into account both our inner experience, others, and our environment, so that we can live more in harmony and balance.
Mm. And I think two words jump at me. You're mentioning you're mentioning connection a lot, and you're mentioning awareness in there. So, and it was interesting, you were kind enough to give me your astrology details. I don't know if you're into astrology or not.
My mom is an astrologer, so
Okay,
yes.
okay. I am too. I like to say I'm in training. It's like a lifetime of training. And you and I have something in common. We have our Chiron as the driving planet. My Chiron is like down here. Yours is like right at the root, and everything else is up there. So it's like you were pulled into your body, or you were called into your body. And it sounds to me like, for me, it was discovering yoga during my corporate job, which happened like in my mid-20s. And it sounds like for you, it happened earlier on, coming into the body. Which brings me to, which then that coming into the body becomes a healing practice, not only for you, but others around you. I know you work with somatic practices, somatic healing. What do you see the body as? What is the body for you? I know I have my answer to that, but I'm curious about
Yeah,
yours.
well, for me, the body is the vehicle that we have in this lifetime to explore life. As I believe, like we are spirits or soul or our consciousness, however we want to talk about it. It's coming here using this vehicle to be able to experience. And the idea for me that there is so much power, so much wisdom, so much that we can do with our bodies. It allows us to do so much. Yet I know from my earlier experiences in life, plus what I see with so many, we don't use this vehicle to its potential. People who walk around and they live in their body suits, but they don't understand mostly how they can use it. Most of us, we just live in our heads, which is part of our body. It's part of it. It's not all of it. And I know, as I was super disconnected to what was happening from the neck down, that once I was able to reconnect, once I was able to actually enjoy the beauty of my body, that I was able to expand my awareness and my sense of connection. It is a way that allowed me to be rooted and as well to be grounded whilst exploring the expansiveness and the openness of life. So I think it's a wonderful vehicle that we have to explore life. And there's, when I'm working with somatic healing, it's about an understanding of how we can use our body and how our body tells us things. Our body is signaling us all the time things that if we don't look at it, it starts to knock on, the door a little bit stronger and stronger and stronger until it actually comes completely out of balance and out of alignment into a disease or a sickness or something manifested in the physical. And it's about understanding like, your body was actually telling you little by little, there's something off. But we need to reconnect with our body to understand how it speaks to us so that we can actually engage with it in a loving way so that we understand that, okay, like if I eat that's not good for me. That doesn't feel good. Or if I do a certain thing, or if I think a specific way, my body is going to react in a certain way that isn't conducive for me to stay well. So understanding the little nudges and how our body speaks, that for many, that's, how they talk about intuition. That is the way that we can use this amazing vehicle that we have to explore life.
I like that. I like the word vehicle. I'm also seeing again parallels to my story where for me it was discovering that I wasn't just the mind and the head going into yoga. And then later on discovering it wasn't even just that, through motherhood, coming into the healing practices of a vibrational nature, of mantra, of crystal healing, tapping, sound healing, and seeing things even deeper than that. And what I'm hearing you say is, so the body is here, why don't we make a connection with it? So it seems to me that the somatic practices are there for us to facilitate that. And my way of looking at it is, I see the realm of the body as our soil, as the place where the goddess Inanna travels down into the psyche. And then I also see it as the night sky where the inner children live, where our potentials live, not just our wounding, but all the quantum potentials we haven't yet realized live. But I love the idea of the vehicle as well, not to minimize or say, just the body is just a vehicle, but like it is a vehicle, isn't that? Isn't that wonderful and amazing?
As well, one of the interesting things with our body, that it really supported my understanding of interconnectedness, is that our bodies, they are not, one thing. They not only keep on changing all of the time, our cells keep on regenerating, and every 7 years, I think that the latest science says that every 7 years, almost all of our cells in the body are new. But also, like, inside of us, and we can see this much more with our gut, that there's been a lot of research on that, but our entire body is made up of our own cells, bacteria, viruses, like all these different, like, microscopic beings that are living together to co-create what we use as our body. And there's so much intelligence that most of us, we're not thinking, during the day, like, okay, right arm, move, up, heart, like, beat, pump some blood, like, we're not telling our brain, okay, now send an electrical, like, impulse towards that pathway, or telling our, like, gut, okay, now create the gastric juices and do this. Like, it works so well, so amazing, but it's also a community, and it shows us how we are part of a whole. Like, yes, it seems that we are just one, but we are made up of a lot more than just one thing. And that, for me, supported so much my understanding, okay, if internally in my own body I am part of this community, then how can I see that externally? That we are part of all of this all together. There's a uniqueness. There's something that makes us our, like, a unique being, and at the same time we are part of the collective.
I like that a lot. Body as a community and as a reminder of the community connection that we have around us. Which brings me to another aspect of your work, which is another type of connection, I would say, family constellations. And I've had a chance to experience them both in person and online. I'd love to find out how you see them, what you see the benefit of them as. And one of the ways that they're defined is they're used to reveal and heal unrecognized family dynamics and trauma. So what are they for you, and how do you see them healing people? And actually, even before that, like, what are they to begin with?
Yeah, thank you for that. I love family constellations. I think it's one of the tools that I have for myself, for my own path. Family constellations has been huge because it showed me, it was another way of exploring energy healing, but from a perspective that I wasn't thinking about before that moment. Every time that I worked on energy healing up until that moment, it was more of, okay, my energy field, my physical body, like all of my bodies, but not an understanding of what came before and all of the entanglements that we have energetically. So in family constellations, or sometimes it's called systemic constellations, what we explored is the energetic entanglement that there is of what came before. So let's say that someone in our family, even if that was 6 generations ago, went through something and they weren't able to process it, then until that gets processed, that keeps on repeating. Someone in the family is going to pick that energy up unconsciously and it's going to play it out. So, I see a lot. There was, for example, someone that was an alcoholic or an addict, and for some reason, like the family didn't approve of that, so they were excluded from the family. Now there's an energy that is hanging around the family that is looking for that to be included. Therefore, someone in the family is going to behave in a way that is congruent to that, to try to bring that energy into the sphere of the family. Therefore, someone in the family is going to potentially have addiction issues, and it's not about their own childhood trauma. It's actually about something that happened potentially generations ago. As well, this can be from, in my experience, from past lives or from things that are not just our family, but our system. As an example, for those that are part of a certain culture that through either colonization or through some wars, they went through like a big cultural trauma, and perhaps your specific family didn't, you still can carry that. So there's a lot of things that we can unravel of what is blocking us in our current state in our lives through the lens of family constellations. And I've done this for myself, but also like through the years working on physical issues, working with financial blockages, work blockages, relationships, like anything can be worked through this lens. And it's just another beautiful way of working energetically to create a shift by recognizing that there are things that happened before us, or even things from our own childhood that we might not know, but that energy, as I like to say, like the energy is having a hold on us, but as well unconsciously, we are choosing to hold on to that energy. And through a family constellation movement or a session, as that gets recognized, that can be healed, and we can choose how we want to live our lives, how we want to rewrite the script of our future, and how we can actually heal not only our past, but our entire system. So when we heal that, we heal it for everyone, like everyone that came and everyone that comes after. So, I love it. It's such a beautiful like practice and tool. And the way that I experience it, like it's fabulous. And for me as a practitioner, one of the things is that because of doing a lot of somatic practices, it's so easy for me to actually be, because in those sessions we use representatives of the different energies or the different people. And when I'm doing that, it's so easy because I can just feel it, and it's like, oh, okay, it's this person, or this is the feeling, or this is what's happening, and then that can be included, brought into the light, and then healed.
Yeah. A few things comes to mind. I think when we say like ancestral wounding and trauma, I think like for me, for instance, like my family has had multi-generational migration, forced migration, like, and I migrated from Turkey to the US, and just even that is a huge thing. But I feel like I live in the US now, like anyone living here, their ancestor has been through migration and war and famine and who knows what not. They feared for their safety, as well as my understanding is, like you were saying, all of those unspoken truths in the family. Like if there's a a family member who was not included in the family, or there was a loss in the family that's not talked about. All of those things continue to live around us. And my experience with the family constellation in person is you as the receiver are at the center, or you're watching, and then the facilitator starts to pick intuitively people. There's a group of people in a circle, and then the facilitator starts to pick like, this is going to be your mom, this is going to be your dad, this is going to be your child, this will be your grandmother and their grandmother and their grandmother, or like however it comes up. And like magically, all of those people that the facilitator calls upon, they start to take on the characteristics of the ancestors. And then they first play out the dysfunctional dynamic for you to see, which is quite interesting to be able to see that in person, like played out in a theatrical scene. And then very gently, the facilitator then says, okay, but maybe you can sit here, maybe you can do this and do that. And I know there are a lot of rules and like guidelines around that. One of which I love is from my knowledge of familial constellations, there's this flow of energy from the elder to the younger. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so there is, from a family constellations perspective, there is an order of energy. This doesn't mean that someone or something is better than the other. It's just the order. And when we allow that order, one of the orders, which is the one that you said, like my parents came before me. So the order is that the energy flows from them towards me. That doesn't mean that there's no actual flow from me to them, but from an order perspective, they came before me. And I need to recognize that they, as their parents before them, they are the ones that are receiving that life force from their parents, from those that came before. So I see it a lot of times as, like if we imagine that family tree behind us, as if that comes towards us. When we allow that order to take place, things in our life start to actually come to more balance, because when there's an imbalance, which a lot of people have this imbalance, that of that order, because whatever life circumstances happened, some people needed to parent their parents, or there's a parent that was absent, therefore this person needed to take certain responsibilities. Unconsciously, energetically, that order needs to be restored, to understand that our parents came before us, therefore energetically they are, in a sense, bigger, or their energy flows towards us. And if that flow isn't happening, then there's blockages in our lives. And that doesn't mean, a lot of times I see this, so there, like I had a lot of times, not only just with this, but with other things, someone that was abused. Like I had a lot of clients that have been abused, whether that was physically, verbally, emotionally. Especially when it was with parents, during the healing, the recognition that they need to heal that relationship, that doesn't mean that they need to heal the actual relationship. What they are healing is the link between them, the energetic link. So when someone is, in a sense, trying to heal that or forgiving that, that's for themselves and for the energy flow, not for allowing someone in their presence that makes them unsafe. That's not so much on a physical plane that needs to take place. It's an energetic healing. But it's so important to understand, when we can see that, there's so much then in our lives that starts flowing. Because as I had an example of one of my clients that she wanted to work on, on her business. Her business wasn't flowing, she wasn't getting enough clients. And when we started working during the family constellation session, it came that she was abused. I didn't know that. And She was like, why is this relevant? I was like, well, that's just what the field is showing at this moment. So we actually healed that during that session. And after that, we didn't do anything about her business. And suddenly her business started to blossom. And it was just like an understanding on how certain energies in our lives might not seem relevant, but they are so important for everything else to come into balance and into order. So, it's hard sometimes for the mind to comprehend, especially if we didn't have a good childhood, or our parents were really awful to us. And so my invitation always to everyone is to not think so much of the person, but of the essence of that being. That is what they are trying to heal. That energy flow that comes from them. I'm just alive here, not just alive, but I'm alive because of my parents. So whatever my parents did, based on whatever it is that came before them, that was also they were playing out certain behaviors. And when I can be grateful for the fact that because of them and everyone else that came before me, I'm alive, then I open the gates of the waters to actually flow through.
I like that water analogy, because the way I'm seeing the image of this is like a tree. The tree getting the water from the roots and then reaching it upwards, and like the older parts of the tree are feeding the younger parts of the tree, which is something that I say to my daughter often. Like she said a couple days ago, she said like what can I do for you, or something like that. And I said, no, you don't have any responsibility towards us, but you have a responsibility to yourself and the generations after you. And
Although, one thing, if I can interrupt
of
1
course.
second, is that there's something in there that, yes, that's true. Also, we can take responsibility for our own work and heal what came before as well, including energies for our parents. So a lot of times, every time that my parents have done a family constellation session, I'm so grateful for them. And I know that every time that I do one, that they are grateful, because like we are all part of the same system. So as we heal something, we heal it both forward and back.
Yeah, I like that. And I think the way I look at it is like, she doesn't have a responsibility, in my view, to nourish me. But if she nourishes herself, that's going to benefit me anyways.
Yes.
And in that way, I think whether a person chooses to have a child or not, like your business is an outflow of you. So I can see how whatever is happening in the trunk and in the other branches would be affecting that. Which brings me to this phrase that I learned from the constellations that I experienced, which is, I honor that which guides you, which comes back to what you're talking about. Like, we're not trying to change the person who harmed us, or whose energies don't flow great with us. We honor that which guides them, and as well as honoring that which guides us, which is our soul, and approaching the relationship from that perspective of, okay, what would feel more in flow here? And what can I release when I say, like, you did what your soul and your then evolution and your wisdom guided you to do. That's what you could do. So it's a bit of,
yeah, there's something from that I actually love this from family constellations. I hadn't heard this before I started being part of this world of family constellation, which is that everything that is excluded comes back, and what we need to do is include people, behaviors, everything. What you're saying, what guides us. Now, one of the key things that I learned in family constellations that changed my perspective was that I don't want to get rid of anything, even what I think that it's negative behaviors or negative energies or bad energies. I want to include everything with love and gratitude in my heart, embrace everything, allow everything that someone else hasn't been able to process, that is part of my field, to process all of it with love and compassion, and choosing not to hold on to it. But it's a different approach than trying to get rid of something. It's like, if I try to get rid of something, that energy will come back into the system in some other way. Whereas if I can include it and lovingly allow it to be, like released or returned, but processed, then that is not coming back any longer. And for me, that was such a huge difference on the way that I was approaching my life. It's like, I don't like this. I'm going to, get rid of that. It's like, no, I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to bring it into my heart, embrace it, and lovingly return it.
Yes, lovingly saying no. I like that. I want to go to your community work because actually before I do that, there's one other thing you mentioned on your website and reference, which I loved. I grew up in Turkey, and there's this show on Netflix called Another Self that actually follows these group of women who move through family constellations, and it explains it and shows it quite well. So I'm going to include that in the notes as well as a
Yes.
resource for
So
people.
good.
Yeah. Community work. What happens in a circle? Why do we get in a circle? And why is that magical?
Mm. I love individual work and I love community work. It's the power of the group. It's magical. When we come together, things can get amplified so much. Now, it can also go the other way. Um, but when there's intention, when there's a coming together, when there's an opening, we can amplify so much the energy. Things can go like so much faster or powerful or, intense. We get to share, we get to interact, we get to do the things that we can't do by ourselves. There's a place that the individual work gets to a limit because it's not in relationship with others. There's no dynamics. We cannot see dynamics unfolding. Therefore, there's no way of knowing if we have a certain blockage or a certain perspective or a certain way that when we get together, we're able to explore that. And there's we live in relationship, whether that is within ourselves, outside ourselves. So when we come together, uh, it actually not only can heal us, it can heal everyone and has such a more powerful ripple effect that goes outwardly. Because if we come as a community in a circle and we heal, we all go back to our own houses, and that now it touches everyone that is living there. And then that continues and that continues. And yes, when we do that individual work, we are really doing that, but it's kind of like supercharging it and making it faster.
Yeah. It's interesting because something close, in my experience, something close to family constellation starts to happen. Like I do crystal healing, group healings in person, and it's like as the people are setting their intentions, it's like each intention is set for the entire group. And I usually take them through a journey of a guided meditation, and they end up at the end when they're sharing, like a lot of people have similar symbols, like they all see a key, they all see a heart, they all see a crystal. I mean, not all of them, but a good majority of them, like things like that. Or they might someone might get tingles and the other person does too, or they feel cold or warm or whatever. So it seems like as people are sitting there, we're already like embodying each other's certain parts. which I've
Yes, well,
also seen. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, that's we start to influence each other and be part of, not influence in a negative way, in a way that our energy fields start to interact. Like whether like when we come in person, it's easy to experience that, as you're saying, because we start to have shared experiences. We can do that, as now you're on the other side of the world, and we can do that. There's no space-time barriers. It's easier to see when we come together, and as you're saying, like that realization, then it's like, oh wow, like you also saw this, or you also experienced this. It, for a lot of people, it can validate their own experience. And sometimes, depending on the stage of our healing path and journey that we are, we might need some validation from others. So it's nice to be able to be part of those groups and be like, yes, I also saw that.
Yes, definitely. And I've had two separate experiences. One of them is like I'm in an astrology training group, and a similar thing happens. And then I went with a group of women to Egypt this past year in December, which was fabulous. And yes, there was the supportive element. And then at certain times, like they would make a comment, and I'm like, oh, that's my mom speaking. Or that's my aunt speaking. They would be like, don't wear that hat, or wear that hat, or whatever. I'm like, oh, there it is. Like my family is still with me, around me. And then of course that becomes an invitation to react differently in that moment.
Yes, I often say, when we are doing healing work and we become more and more aware, one of the possibilities is that we can move from reacting to responding, because the reacting is all unconscious. All of these energies and all of our learned behavior and conditioning and programming takes us to that reaction. When we're able to heal, when we're able to create an opening, we're able to become much more aware and conscious, we can start to respond to life appropriately. The action might be the same. Where it's coming from, it's a very different place.
Mm-hmm. I would love to know, as a healer, as a spiritual person, what are you learning right now? What is inspiring you this moment? And what's next for you?
Beautiful question. Um, at the moment, I am exploring a couple of different things. One is I've been working and connecting a lot with the quantum realm, and to connect with the energetic blueprint of the cells in my body, so that I can connect to their original blueprint. Um, Also, as I'm doing that, I am working with my telomeres. So I'm expanding and lengthening my telomeres so that they actually um, can support my body becoming younger and younger as I grow older. And the other thing at the moment is exploring as well what's going on in relationship. So those are the main things at the moment that I keep on doing everything else and I keep on exploring. Those are at the moment the ones that are at the top.
I see. And where do you think that's like, what's next with them or with something else? Where do you think they're taking you to?
But yeah, just like with everything else, they are taking me to the next version of myself, to greater understandings. Um, as I keep on exploring all of these different healing modalities and different practices, I keep on understanding that I have been the one, limiting myself in my full potential. And I practice a lot, and I really connect with the Tibetan Buddhist teachings. And with those teachings, I have learned that to reach enlightenment or realization, I just need to remove all of the layers that are preventing me from seeing the truth of who I already am. And these practices are allowing me to explore that which it is who I am is much more than what I thought that it was. And that, it can be in so many different ways, and it can be in ways that I didn't even know. As I keep on experiencing layer after layer, something new comes up, a new way of seeing things, a new way of experiencing life, a new way of understanding what's possible, both for mind, body, and spirit. So it's just an expansion. And then I see that, in my everyday life with my work and my relationships and the people that I connect with. And it's just beautiful how things keep on unfolding.
I like that. And I feel like from our conversation, the common thread I see in your work is this connection element, like connection with yourself, with the body, and through the body to the quantum, connection with the community and the community of the body, and then connection with the ancestors, with the family constellation, which is beautiful to have that common thread. How can people find out more about your work, Brian?
Well, thank you so much. If people resonate with anything that I'm saying, they can find me through my name, Brian Berneman, brianberneman.com, or on social media, or through my projects or businesses, Conscious Action NZ as New Zealand, or youbeingyou.org.
Okay, and then you were very generously, you are offering a free family constellation session, and this would be an online session, and I'm going to include the details of how to go about getting that. But how would that work in an online setting, just very briefly for our listeners?
So I do this a lot, work one-on-one. So for the ones that just know family constellations from a group perspective, and in a one-on-one session, I will be working over, remotely on my computer, and I use different representatives. I use different objects to represent the energies, and I, as a facilitator, represent all of those energies, and it's basically then the same dynamic. So the other person, the client, is on the other side of the computer, and I will ask them to engage in the ways that come up in the moment. And that's, it's super easy, and I love it. And I love the fact that, I can work with anyone anywhere around the world, and it's still, the energy travels anyways.
Energy goes, and I experienced that with a different practitioner. The online family, it can be quite powerful, so definitely we'll include that there. Thank you so much for this was a lovely conversation. I appreciate who you are and what you do in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Damla, so much for as well this time, this conversation, and for the work that you're doing as well to share all of this information, and to give a platform as well for having these conversations. And hopefully, if anyone resonates with something of this, then something can be awakened and moving them into a direction that supports their own well-being and their own path.
That's the intention. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to Conversations with Healers. If this episode spoke to you in any way, please leave a review or comment, like or love it, and share it with others in your life. This is a true soul love project from my heart to yours. I really appreciate your help in spreading the word. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe and check out other episodes to listen to some extraordinary healing stories and advice. Have a beautiful and wonderful day.